occupied by two all but not forgotten soldiers. And thanks for this monument goes to Emmeline and Leonard Becker, because 75 years after the death of these Union soldiers, William Boone Keith and Confederate soldier Union Moore Graham, this monument was built to honor their service.
When they arrived in Las Vegas about 1910, they found a small railroad town only established 5 years earlier. Railroads supported the speculation that land might be worth something someday. All one had to do was file a claim, pay a small fee, live on it for 7 months of the year for 3 years, and clear 40 acres to grow crops. It didn't matter whether the crops came up or not. In 1910, Las Vegas primarily consisted of its original 40 square blocks, Stewart to Garces, Main to 5th, now Las Vegas Boulevard, the Strip. Through the railroad's land and water company, growth was strictly controlled. A few farms and ranches developed in outlying areas and supplied by their own water through artesian wells. The population in 1910 was 1,250.
Emmeline and Leonard Becker, Em and Len, as they're known, oversaw the Union Civil War Monument project with the community's support. Leonard was a great-grandson of Union soldier Christian Becker. Little is known about the lives of Keith and Graham until the Beckers did their research. What they learned was that the two men met in Las Vegas in their old age and became good friends. According to a December 1920 issue of the Las Vegas Age newspaper, Keith, quote, found a friend to bring him comfort and companionship. J.M. Graham, by name, a veteran of the Civil War on the side of the Confederacy. They had never met in battle. Graham fought in Virginia while Keith fought in Tennessee and Mississippi.
Joseph Moore Graham was born October 20th, 1838 in Virginia. He enlisted as a private in the Virginia Cavalry and served until General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865. The 1910 U.S. Census says Graham was living in Rhyolite in Nye County. He later moved to Colorado and probably was a miner or a prospector. Graham moved from Buena Vista, Colorado to Las Vegas in the mid-1910s. In poor health, he stayed at the home of his son, J.W. Graham. On April 2, 1917, Graham died of pneumonia at 78 years, 5 months, and 18 days.
William Boone Keith was born March 30th, 1840 in Nobel County, Ohio, and was, as a child, moved to Iowa. He came from a family of iron workers who made bells and ironworker used by the early pioneers. On September 14, 1861, he enlisted as a private in Company K of the 12th Iowa Infantry, according to military records, which also show Keith was captured at Pittsburgh Landing, Tennessee, on April 6, 1862, during the Battle of Shiloh. He was freed in a prisoner exchange on October 17, 1862, and rejoined Union forces, only to suffer a serious right thigh wound, April 14, 1864, at Tupelo, Mississippi. He was discharged February 9, 1866, 10 months after the Civil War ended. In 1911, Keith moved to Las Vegas from Nebraska, where it's supposed he was a farmer. He lived alone. His wife, Louisa, remained in Nebraska. He was the father of 3 girls and 2 boys. Keith's Bible, his family Bible, makes only one reference to his military service, noting that he was a prisoner of war and was fed meat that, quote, was infested with maggots. We believe Keith moved to the desert for health reasons, seeking a drier climate due to arthritis and respiratory problems. And on I go. On April 2nd, 1917, after Graham died, William went to Woodlawn Cemetery, which is now in Las Vegas Boulevard, Washington Avenue, and bought a plot, number 410 and 411. Keith obtained Graham's wife's ashes from Virginia and buried them with Graham in plot 410. Keith then erected this granite shaft grave marker that reads, Civil War veterans, 1861-1865, arrayed in the conflict, in strife and dismay, one more blue and the other gray. Time brought its changes, the men came to know the joy with which true friendship in life can bestow. His friend Keith chiseled those words himself into that stone.
By all probabilities, Keith and Graham whiled away hot, lazy afternoons, sharing indelible memories of the long-ago war and probably complaining about how young people of that era had it a lot easier than they did in their youth. A common complaint. It was common for men who fought on opposite sides during a bitter war that to this day has left unhealing scars in some communities, found friendship later in life. North-South friendships after the war were not unusual. It was not uncommon that after a day's battle, enemy soldiers would talk to each other from opposite sides of a creek and even share supplies or a plug of chewing tobacco. But that they would meet many years later in Las Vegas, that is unusual.
Since the erection of this monument in the 1850s, research has identified